Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to reading today. I'm so excited about reading today because we get to start a new book. But first, let's talk about what you need. You will need your Wit and Wisdom notebook and your workbook, as well as a pen or pencil. You will also need the book Me, Jane. If you do not have that book, that is okay. Remember, some books we had enough for everyone and some books we did not. But I have given you a PDF version here in the blue square if you do not have that. We're going to go over our big question that we have already started. And today we have a new medium question and small question. So first, let's go over our big question together. Our essential question for Module 2 is, what can we discover about animals' unique features? Do you remember what animal the mice discovered in Seven Blind Mice? That's right. They discovered an animal. That is an elephant. They discovered the elephant. So now we're starting a new book called Me, Jane. And as we read this book, here is our medium-sized question we're going to be answering. We're going to answer this for the next several lessons. And it says, how did Jane Goodall make discoveries about animals? So just like our characters in Seven Blind Mice discovered the elephant, our character Jane Goodall in our book, Me, Jane, is going to make some discoveries. Remember, discover means to find something out. And she's going to make some discoveries about animals. So today, because it's our first day with our new book, we've got to notice and wonder about our book, Me, Jane. So we're going to do that now. I can't wait to share this book with you. I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger so that you'll be able to see the pictures. Well, whoops. I don't know how I did that. Let's try again. Okay, sorry about that technical difficulty. I'm ready to read our story, Me, Jane. And the author is Patrick McDonnell. He is also the illustrator. Do you notice that there is a Caldecott Honor Medal on the front of this book? Well, that's because his pictures won an award. He is the author and the illustrator for this book. All right. As you are listening, remember to be thinking about, what do I notice? Remember, these are things that you observe, that you see, or that you hear, that you think, I think that's important. And then remember, you're going to be also doing some wondering. And you're going to ask some questions about what you notice and what you wonder. Here we go. Me, Jane. You can follow along in your book if you have one. Jane had a stuffed toy named Jubilee. He was a chimpanzee. Jane had a stuffed toy chimpanzee named Jubilee. She cherished Jubilee and took him everywhere she went. And Jane loved to be outside. Can you see she was outside? Oh, and then there's Jubilee. She took him everywhere she went. She watched birds making their nest, spiders spinning their webs, and squirrels chasing one another up and down trees. She loved to watch all of the things outside. Jane learned that all that she could about the animals and plants she studied in her backyard and read about in books. So not only did she study them in her backyard, but she read about them in books. Here are some things that she wrote down when she was studying. See, this says the Alligator Society, and she wrote about the alligator, and she even made a little puzzle that she thought was interesting about some of the animals she learned. On this page, it looks like she made So the cobra alligator knowledge. Here's some of the things that she questioned, she wondered, and here's some of the things that she learned. She even made a puzzle for that animal. And then she also wrote and drew some other animals that she learned about. Oops, sorry, I dropped something. One day, curious Jane wondered where eggs come from. So she and Jubilee snuck into Grandma Nut's chicken coop. So she was curious. It meant that she had a lot of questions that she wanted to figure out. She was so curious that she had to go into the chicken coop to see where the eggs came from. She hid behind some straw and stayed very still. And observed the miracle. Do you remember that word we learned yesterday? Observe. She observed, or she watched very closely to see the chicken laying its egg. It was a magical world full of joy and wonder, and Jane felt very much a part of it. Jane often climbed her favorite tree, which she named Beech. She would lay her cheek against its trunk and seem to feel the sap flowing beneath the bark. Jane could feel her own heart beating, beating, beating. Have you noticed anything that you think might be important? You can pause the video and take some notes if you need to. With the wind in her hair, she read and reread the books about Tarzan of the Apes, in which another girl, also named Jane, lived in the jungles of Africa. Do you have any questions yet? Remember, you could record your wonder. You could pause the video and record anything you wonder. Jane dreamed of a life in Africa too. Remember, Africa is in another continent, and we know that there are a lot of animals that live in Africa that she might want to learn about. A life living with and helping all the animals. That was her dream. She wanted to live in Africa and live with the animals and help them. At night, Jane would tuck Jubilee into bed, say her prayers, and fall asleep. To awake one day, to her dream come true. Do you notice something about this illustration right here? Do you notice that this is a real photograph? Do you think Jane Goodall's dream actually came true? Well, we're going to read more later, but if you notice in the back of your book, if you have one, there is a message from Jane, and there's a little bit more about Jane Goodall. And if you want to read that on your own with your family, then you can. We'll look at it some more later. But Jane Goodall was actually a real person. And this story tells a little bit about her life. And this story, in the end, we find out that her dream of living with the animals in Africa and studying them actually came true. So interesting. Can't wait to read it again tomorrow and explore deeper into what is happening in this story. But today, remember, we are still noticing and wondering. So now you're going to continue and do your notice and wonder chart, either in your journal, and you can insert the image of your journal on this slide, slide 3, or you could type in the chart below. It's up to you. But remember, if you would like a 3 today, then you are doing one notice and one wonder, something that you observed or saw that you think might be important, and then something that you wonder, a question. Now remember, your wonder must start with a question word. So you can use your handout 1C question cube if you have it, or you can just use my picture of my question cube on the slide. But remember, your questions that you have about me, Jane, must start with a question word for them to be a question. So you need one notice, one wonder to get a 3 today. But remember, if you choose to do above and beyond, then you could receive a 4 if you have 2 or more really great notices and 2 or more really great wonders. So you decide what you are going to work for today. And then after you've done your noticing and wondering, you can take your brain break on the next slide before part 2. See you later.